A corporation must maximize efficiency to remain competitive. An employee relies on that corporation for their livelihood and naturally seeks better compensation and working conditions. That built-in tension drives the modern workplace. Managing that tension is the role of industrial relations, the formal, regulated relationship between employers and employees. Malaysia regulates this relationship through a rigid legal framework, primarily governed by the Industrial Relations Act 1967. Within this structure, the state establishes a non-negotiable legal floor. The Employment Act of 1955 dictates the minimum acceptable standards for any employee operating in the country. It places strict caps on working hours, mandates exact rates for overtime pay, and guarantees annual leave. It also sets a specific financial baseline. Current regulations guarantee a minimum wage of 1,500 ringgit per month. But standard minimums rarely satisfy every worker's ambition for better compensation or specialized protections. An individual employee attempting to negotiate against the legal and financial resources of a corporate entity faces a massive asymmetry in power. On their own, they have very little leverage. To address this, workers aggregate their leverage by organizing into formal unions, transitioning the system from individual contracts to true industrial relations. This mind map from our source materials outlines the human motivations behind this shift, listing 6 core reasons employees aggregate their power. While social factors and leadership opportunities are relevant, the system is primarily driven by economic motives and the protection of basic rights. Forming a union in Malaysia requires strict formal registration under the Trade Unions Act of 1959. The law sets precise boundaries. A union must have at least 10 members who are employed within the exact same industry or trade. This flowchart illustrates how these groups are structurally classified, splitting into public, private, and employers' associations. Private sector unions are further divided into in-house groups and national unions organized by sector, like the National Union of Bank Employees. Above these individual industry groups sits the Malaysian Trades Union Congress, or MTUC. Founded in 1949, it acts as the overarching federation representing workers across multiple professions. The state strictly prohibits trade unions from acting as political agents or engaging in political activities. Furthermore, they are barred from receiving funds from foreign sources. The state engineers trade unions to be potent tools for economic negotiation while neutralizing their ability to act as political or foreign-influenced actors. Unions exercise their power through collective bargaining. This is the legal process where representatives negotiate wages and conditions with management to reach a collective agreement. A collective agreement is a formal written contract, making every negotiated term legally binding on both the employer and the union. The system must also account for moments when negotiation fails completely. Under Malaysian law, this failure state is classified as a trade dispute. Reaching this specific legal classification establishes the legal grounds for industrial action. Picketing is a peaceful display of solidarity that demonstrates support without halting production. The ultimate escalation is a strike. This is a collective decision to completely halt work, exerting economic pressure on the employer until demands are met. To protect the economy from sudden disruption, unions must follow strict procedural steps and wait out a mandatory cooling-off period before a strike can occur. During these breakdowns, the primary safety net is the industrial court. This institution resolves disputes before they cause irreversible damage to businesses and livelihoods. The industrial court possesses the statutory power to adjudicate the dispute and issue final decisions that legally bind both the employer and the workers. The architecture of Malaysian labor law acts as a funnel, channeling economic conflict away from the streets and into a controlled, binding judicial environment. When we zoom out from domestic law, we see the macroeconomic reality of Malaysia, the massive footprint of multinational organizations. Technology giants like Intel, Dell, and HP have established heavy operations here, drawn by a strategic location, a skilled workforce, and a growing economy. This creates an immediate administrative conflict. Managing human resources at a global scale requires standardizing operations across borders, but those universal goals must fit within rigid national constraints. A global corporation must adapt its training schedules and operating hours to accommodate local cultural practices and a diverse array of religious holidays. Global compensation and benefit packages must be modified to ensure compliance with local minimum wage laws and the specific sectoral union agreements outlined earlier. Failing to account for these legal differences can lead a multinational to inadvertently violate local labor law, triggering binding action from the industrial court. Global scale does not erase local sovereignty. A multinational's success depends on its ability to align global objectives with this local architecture. Today, this system is tested by disruptive new movements. Remote work, the gig economy, and artificial intelligence are altering the nature of employment. These borderless technological shifts are forcing a reevaluation of how traditional employment standards are applied to the modern worker. Success in global human resources requires a dual competency: the vision to implement international trends and the precision to navigate the immovable legal machinery of local industrial relations.